Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Sunday, June the 22nd. Sunday. Happy Game 7 in the NBA Finals to all of you who celebrate, but we're not here to talk about the NBA Finals tonight. We're talking about the AFC South, the most interesting players in the division this year and where Cam Ward might rank amongst them. We are going to do that and do a little Sunday Fun Day before we let you get on with your basketball viewing experience. We are always happy to have you guys in. Hope you had a phenomenal weekend and looking forward to talking about this tonight because I do expect there to be some reasonable disagreement on interesting. And interesting does not have to mean the most exciting. Interesting does not have to mean the best. That's the context that I think is unique to this discussion because all three of those are different conversations. And Cam Ward's ranking among the most interesting players may be higher for some than it is for others, especially given a lot of the unique dynamics happening with the other three teams in this division. So we will take a look at that, and you will hear from the player that I think is the most interesting in the division here in just a little while. You guys know how the process works, though. I need you to share the broadcast around on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. If you're on YouTube, if you're subscribed, you probably got a notification. If you got that notification, make sure you like the video. Look at that. We're doing a little Inception streaming on YouTube tonight where we see David, we see Randy Howard, we see all of our YouTube friends, and more of you guys will, look at that, start to trickle in here in just a second. Hell, I'll even like the video from mine as we're sitting here. You can text that link to a friend if you're so inclined. If you're hanging out on Facebook Live, you can share now to public. That's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. If you're on Twitter, retweet it. That sounds about right. Retweet it and do the same or repost it. If you're hanging out on Truth Social, I guess you could retruth it. Isn't that what they're called? The individual posts are called truths. Either way, I mean, more people hanging out on Truth Social these days, just kind of trying to keep track of the news, but that's okay. If you're hanging out, if you're streaming primetime on Truth Social, I guess welcome. And share the broadcast around wherever you're hanging out here with us tonight. It's always good to see people hanging out here with us. So we have many things to discuss. I want to make sure that I can watch the Pacers game. I know many of you are looking forward to Game 7 as well, no matter if you are invested from a gambling perspective, or if you're rooting for OKC over Indiana or vice versa. We'll go ahead and get this topic started because I do think it's a fun one. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Sunday night. I'm your host, Buck Rising. Hello, welcome in. And I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the wonderful people at Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Employee pricing for everyone is what they offer. That's Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com for more information. Of course, TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch. Got a good workout in on Friday. Fridays are my TrueMath Fitness days. You can go 7 days a week if you like, depending on your level of membership or your fitness goals. TrueMath Fitness is there to help you accomplish each and every one of those goals at your pace, for your body, and for your speed. Make sure you go to truemathfitness.com for that first workout free. So the AFC South is not historically one of the NFL's best divisions, right? It has been, it has been, I would say, pretty cyclical. It's not like the AFC South has always top to bottom been terrible. I think a lot of times people who don't, root for teams in this division or follow teams in this division just kind of consider the entire division to be some version of Titans and Jags, right? Titans and Jags Thursday night football has always been kind of the stigma around the AFC South, right? The Colts have had runs. The Titans have had runs. The Texans have had runs. The Giants, or rather the Jaguars, are more the flash in the pan team, where they had a brief moment of relevancy a couple of times in the Blake Bortles era. But beyond that, I mean, David Garrard obviously played high-level football for the Jags 100 years ago. There are moments in time where all four of these teams have been relevant, and there are a couple of these teams that have been, more frisky than they get credit for, even though the division they play in is regarded as one of the worst in the NFL year over year. And I think that's fair to say, right? The NFC South with the Panthers, the Saints, the Bucks, and who am I missing? The Falcons. That is also not necessarily regarded as one of the toughest divisions in the NFL. It's professional football. All these games are tough. Divisional games are always tough. So if you don't subscribe to the stigma of the AFC South being a poorer division relative to the rest of the NFL, that's fine. There's good football being played everywhere. There's also bad football being played in every division. So it's not just an AFC South problem, even though they do tend to get hit with that more often than not. But I want to have a conversation tonight about the most interesting player in the division across all four teams. There are interesting players on all four teams. Again, I want to make sure that I preface this conversation by saying that this conversation is not about the best player, though that can factor into the most interesting. This conversation is not about the most exciting player, though that can also fold in to the category of most interesting. Obviously, a player that garners more excitement than another, that would raise their interest level, the level of interest in them from people, whether you're a fan, whether you're somebody who's just curious about the trajectory of a lot of these young quarterbacks in the division. And there are, all four. Well, I don't know what you do with the Richardson and Daniel Jones situation, but Richardson is a fascinating character in the middle of all of this, even though, we that should have been our Sunday Funday, right, Robert? It should have been the Anthony Richardson rap video. I didn't think about that until just now, but it's all right. It's too late. We're here now. We'll talk about it on the radio show tomorrow. There are interesting players on all four teams. Whether you are somebody who is a believer in Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen is the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's helped get the best football out of Will Levis's career as a college player. He helped Baker Mayfield get to career highs. He was on the Rams staff multiple times, and he is somebody who is regarded as a quarterback fixer. Now he's going to try and fix Trevor Lawrence. No one has any idea how successful that will be. Trevor Lawrence also plays on a team with Travis Hunter, who is a fascinating player in the middle of all this. He is going to grade out pretty high as far as the interest level, right? You look at, I would go so far as to say Cam Robinson, the left tackle for the Houston Texans, who's replacing Laramie Tunsil, who's no stranger to the AFC South, a former Jacksonville Jaguar, but they're trying to reinvent the Houston Texans offense, firing their OC and their O-line coach, shipping Laramie Tunsil off to Washington, who's one of the better left tackles in football, even though his performance last year didn't necessarily indicate that. Cam Robinson being tasked with the blind side of arguably the best quarterback in the division is a very interesting character here. I mentioned Richardson with the Colts. There is a long laundry list of interesting things. Again, not the best player, certainly not the most exciting player, though he does have some moments, but he is fascinating because he could cost a lot of people their jobs. He could also completely change the trajectory of the Colts, who I think most of us have kind of left for dead because they don't know what the hell they're doing, or they don't seem to externally know what the hell that they're doing or going to do about their quarterback situation, though they do seem to have Tannehilled themselves into a good hedge or a solid hedge, right, in Daniel Jones, who also is probably going to make an appearance in this conversation. Then you get to the Titans. Obviously, they have the number one overall pick at quarterback. But beyond that, there are some players who are interesting on that roster, but I think that you would probably look at a lot of these different teams before you started to get to the likes of Jeffrey Simmons, Jarvis Brownlee. L'Jarius Sneed is an interesting figure on the Titans, but not for the reasons that Titans fans want him to be interesting, right? That's that's been kind of the catch-22 of the L'Jarius Sneed. I'd call it a L'Jarius Sneed problem more than I would a solution or story. It's just been problematic basically the entire time that he's been here for one reason or another. But he is an interesting figure in the trajectory of the Titans defense and how they fare in the AFC South. So now that you have the ground rules of interesting, and again, you can factor in or you can give extra points for a better player or grade up your interesting factor, no matter what qualification that you're using here. But I just wanted to make sure that I clarified between best, most exciting, and what we're doing, which is the most interesting. So who's the most interesting player in the AFC South this year? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Give me a name. In the comments on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, we'll discuss at length together the most interesting player in the AFC South this year. It's your Two Rivers Ford take, as always. It's presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer, where they currently offer you employee pricing for everyone. You can go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. They win awards for the quality of their customer service. Their sales staff does not work on commission, which means you do not feel any pressure throughout the course of the car buying experience. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com, like I mentioned. And you will leave us your commentary on the most interesting player in the AFC South. I'm going to tell you right now that mine is not Cam Ward, though you are completely entitled. I'm not gonna player shame you today if you pick Cam Ward, because if you're a Titans fan, Cam Ward is the most interesting player in the division, and the vast majority of you are. Occasionally we'll get some trolls from other fan bases that pop in here just to bother you guys, but there's nothing wrong with seeing the number one overall pick, understanding that he plays the most important position, knowing that that's been a position that plagues you top to bottom, and saying Cam Ward, even though that's not going to be my opinion, because I'm looking at the division as a whole, and obviously I'm approaching this from a different perspective than you guys are as fans, though there is no issue with saying Cam Ward. Richie is going with Ward. Jeffrey Mullins is going to split the baby, though I asked him for one. You have to pick Cam Ward. Who's more? I mean, because that's the question, right, Jeffrey? Cam Ward or Travis Hunter for a lot of you, because Travis Hunter is a fascinating case study in the middle of all this. But I'm going to make you pick one. You can't pick Cam Ward and Travis Hunter. You have to pick one or the other. Who's the more interesting player between those two? Because I'd imagine a lot of you might say Hunter for the unknown, right? You know that Cam Ward is going to play quarterback. You know a lot of things about Cam Ward. You know a lot of things about Travis Hunter too, but his part to play, his role in all of this is going to be fascinating for a number of different reasons, because he is going to try to play both positions. Randy Howard answers the question. It's obviously Travis Hunter, but I'm more interested to see how Ward handles NFL pressure. Again, personal investment is one thing, and that's fine. But the interest level here can also apply to teams that, can impact you. Travis Hunter, if he ends up being a good defender, he's going to major in wide receiver, it sounds like, but he can give you problems both ways. If Anthony Richardson pans out, then all of a sudden you're having to think about the Colts. I don't think that's going to happen, but if it does, you should always leave the door open for the possibility until such time as there's no path forward. They're getting close in Indianapolis to there being no path forward. But if Anthony Richardson all of a sudden turns into somebody worthy of the number 4 overall pick, then you have to start thinking about the Colts in the mix with this right now. Or I think Titans fans are mostly fixated on the Texans at the top of the division and then hoping that the Jags don't get it right with Trevor Lawrence, which is the position that you should take. Trevor is a fascinating player here, because you want to talk about number 1 overall picks at quarterback. He has a higher ceiling than any quarterback in the division, a higher talent ceiling than any quarterback in the division. Even if you're a Titans fan, I don't think that's up for debate. You can try and dispute it if you want to, but if I asked you straight up, if Trevor, let's just reset the board. Let's say that Trevor Lawrence and Cam Ward were both in the 2025 draft, and you hadn't drafted Cam Ward yet, right? And Trevor Lawrence hadn't gone to the Jags in, what was that? He was 2020, 2021. I think he was 20. Burrow was 20. Lawrence was 21. So let's just say that Trevor never went in the 2021 draft, but he went in the 2025 draft. They're both in the same draft class. And if I asked you honestly, based on their collegiate careers, which one would you take? I'm sure a lot of you now would say Cam Ward, but you'd be liars, because Trevor Lawrence, coming out of college, was regarded as the best quarterback prospect that we had seen since Andrew Luck went into the NFL draft process. So I think that it's important to keep that context in mind as you consider, okay, is Trevor Lawrence actually interesting? Because if they hit on Liam Cohen and the Trevor Lawrence marriage, that's a problem for the foreseeable future, if you are viewing this through the prism of the Titans fan. Broderick says Lawrence, and please don't lie. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if I put both of those players in that draft class, we could throw Richardson in there. I think most of you would probably take Cam Ward or Trevor Lawrence over Anthony Richardson. Some of you may still believe in talent ceiling there, but I think those people are, probably just trying to convince themselves as much as they're trying to convince somebody else. Then there's CJ Stroud, right? So let's take those 3. If you put those 3, would you take Cam Ward over either of them? I don't know. I don't. It's a hypothetical worth thinking about, right? When you put it in that context, it really makes you think about, okay, what is Cam Ward going to be able to do in this situation? How much better can he get as a pro versus what we thought of all three of these players coming out in individual years, right? They weren't all drafted. None of them were drafted at the same time. They all three came out. Richardson and Stroud were in the same draft, but they all three came out at different times talking about the top of this. And we're making an assumption to put Cam Ward in there, but he's a number one overall pick, so you at least have to have the discussion around him. Lawrence, Stroud, and Ward, are any of you taking Ward over the other two? That's an interesting thing to think about after a while, which makes, again, interesting players here. Stroud and Lawrence are fascinating, as is Cam Ward. But I think I expect Trevor Lawrence to be better. I expect Cam Ward to make the Titans better. I expect CJ Stroud to win the division. The Houston Texans are still the best team in the division, and we can't assume health because health is always subject to change. But if all things are equal, all things are healthy equal from a health standpoint, one would expect that the Houston Texans should be able to handle this division, even if the Titans, the Texans, and the Colts find ways to make their life a little more difficult. Now, could things change? Could the Titans, dig themselves out of the basement and sniff a wild card? I have no idea. I would probably bet against that, but that's why you play the games, right? Could the Colts get back into the mix, provided that, either Richardson or Daniel Jones provide them a bit of a life raft type of situation and competing for a wild card? I don't know whether Trevor Lawrence and the Jags are capable of overtaking CJ Stroud and the Texans, but imagine a world in which the Jags end up winning the division and everybody else is jockeying for a place beneath them. It's a really, Greg Cosell described week one between the Titans and the Broncos as a petri dish game, like a science experiment of a game. And I really feel that way every year about the AFC South, but this is another one of those years where you're looking around and be like, you don't want to close the door to any real possibility. You can be realistic. You can be sensible about these things. You can say, yeah, Titans probably have a little bit more to go based on what we know right now. And we don't know everything right now. We'll know more by the time we get to October, early November. I think that there are a couple of different things that you have to apply to this division and say, man, I think if you're an AFC South, if you're a person, most of you, vast majority of you are Titans fans, if you're a person who is interested in this division, who is rooting for a team in this division, you're probably fascinated as hell to see what happens. Now, maybe one shits the bed early. The Titans were that team last year. Doesn't have to be the Titans, right? Something could go wrong with the Texans, and they have to dig themselves out of the hole. The same thing could happen with the Jags. The Colts could be a nightmare. I mean, the Colts, by percentage chance, are the most likely nightmare team just because of their quarterback uncertainty, and everybody else at least has a plan. The other three at least have a plan as far as how to move forward at the most important position in sports, which is why I'm going to go with Daniel Jones. Not even Anthony Richardson here, because I think he's already lost the job. I mean, nobody's going to say that publicly. But the idea that Daniel Jones is coming in here, he's the odds-on favorite for the comeback player of the year. The Colts were an 8-win team last year, which is batshit crazy given the quarterback situation, the lack of basically everything that Anthony Richardson gave them. And it could end up being that the Colts don't do shit and Daniel Jones ends up being the New York Giants version of Daniel Jones. But if you had to pick a quarterback reclamation project, the next Sam Darnold, right? The next Baker Mayfield, the next Geno Smith, Daniel Jones at least has a seat at that table, even if that doesn't end up happening. But if the Colts are an 8-win team with a shitty version of Anthony Richardson, and was Flacco was the backup quarterback for the Colts last year. So they're trying to figure out things, and they do enough to win games. They keep themselves in the hunt the entire way through. It's not a bad roster. Tyler Warren in the first round is interesting. I would argue that with Tank Dell hurt in Houston, the Colts probably have the best collection of skill position players. When you look top to bottom, I have no idea Jonathan Taylor is still only 26, which is insane. And maybe he never gets back to that MVP type of conversation. And I thought that was a lot. I didn't think Jonathan Taylor deserved the same kind of conversation as Derrick Henry as an MVP candidate, for example. But, whatever. Those are media narrative type things. I am interested in all four of these teams and interested in all four of these teams' quarterback rooms But Daniel Jones, I think, is the one who brings the most, or the Colts generally. The Colts generally are the ones who bring the largest degree of variance to that conversation, which is what I think makes them interesting here.
Just what was this experience like this week, weighing your options, and now that you're here, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, new experience for me. I think you're just trying to, look through it, see where, where the best fit is, where you're most excited to be, and I felt like that was here. So I'm excited to be here. I think just, being here today, meeting the coaches, meeting the staff, meeting everybody. It's been really, really impressed with everyone here. So I'm excited, looking forward to it.
Why was it here? Why was this the best fit for you?
I think a number of things. I think, I think you look at the team and you look at, the success they've had, and I think offensively doing a lot of really good things. I think coaching staff wise, I've always had a lot of respect for Coach Steichen and his, he's been successful in a number of places as a offensive coach, and I think he's built a really good staff. So Alex Tanney's, was passing game coordinator, is a guy I've played with for a couple years early in my career and have been close with. So, I think there was a lot of, a lot of really good things here.
Sorry, I'm muted. I didn't realize. Titans legend Alex Tanney is who he mentioned there. But Daniel Jones, he doesn't have to be the best quarterback. Indy doesn't have to win the division, but they can be interesting because they have the most shit to figure out. The Titans have a plan. I don't know if the plan's going to work, but they have a plan. So at least you have a baseline on how to move forward. And it's all four of them have a plan, right? The plan was draft Anthony Richardson. He didn't work. Let's go bring in Daniel Jones. And it's not quite Mario to Tannehill 2019 for the Titans, but it's at least a somewhat similar thought process where we have a first-round pick. He may not work out. We have a team that we think is closer, that the quarterback is, just the biggest tipping point. Can we get enough out of Daniel Jones, at least to make this thing interesting? And remember, in 19, the Titans were a wild card. They went on that spectacular run. Nobody believed in Ryan Tannehill coming out of Miami, and Ryan Tannehill, with the help of a roster that was ready, right? Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, rookie class, Jeffrey Simmons, rookie class, the offensive line, the best offensive line the Titans have had in God knows how long. That it's not the exact same thing, but there are some parallels to draw there, which is what makes them an interesting team versus the best or most exciting. The Titans, if I was a Titans fan, I would almost like that they're not overwhelmingly interesting, that they just seem to be putting together a roster that is going to grow over time, that has at least a baseline level of moving up in the world and raising the talent floor of the team. They don't have to be interesting to be good. That's an important thing to remember here, because you could say, well, why would you pick the Colts? They're neither interesting nor good. I do think that they're interesting because they have a lot of variance to them. Indiana, by the way, is starting to heat up 14-10 lead in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Tyrese Halliburton looks good, and OKC just had to take a timeout. If my team wins a championship, I'm going to be loud as hell about it on the radio show tomorrow, but we're just keeping an eye on that with you guys as well. I think, on the whole, that it's okay for the Titans to be interesting. The Titans can be good without being interesting, right? 2019, people did not think that they were interesting, but they were good, so it didn't matter. Jacksonville, Houston doesn't have anything necessarily sexy or TMZ about them, but they're the reigning champs. They're the back-to-back champs. Titans have finished in fourth place in the last couple of years. It would, just based on the way that things level out in the NFL, one would expect that to change at some point in time. And I think Jacksonville is probably, pretty low down if you're talking about league-wide interest. But for the division, if Trevor Lawrence ever hits, that changes the math on a lot of different things. So I think everybody, no matter what team you're rooting for, is looking around at all three of these other teams and being like, all right, well, what's going to happen here? Because not only do I need my team to get it right, but I need these other teams to get it wrong. And they haven't gotten it wrong yet, super wrong yet, but there's at least that discussion point for all four of them to say, I have no idea what the hell is going to happen here. Let's wrap things up with a little Sunday fun day. What's the best thing that you saw on the internet this week? We are going to have a lot of conversation tomorrow. We're going to go back and revisit the AFC South defensive position group rankings. Tomorrow on the radio show, we're going to have Slay to recap the finals and talk about this Kevin Durant trade. We are going to have, who else is on the radio show tomorrow? Josh Pate is going to talk about the status of college sports and college football specifically with us in studio as well. It's going to be a really fun radio show tomorrow. We're looking forward to having you guys from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. But let's wrap things up with a little bit of Sunday fun day. And I already mentioned, or at least hinted at mine, but I'll let you hear from it here in just a second right before we remind you that the great people at TrueMath Fitness help make this show possible. TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch is where you go. First workout is free. Personal training, group fitness classes. If you sign up for a membership, their open gym is open for you as you please. 7 days a week. TrueMathFitness.com, conveniently located in downtown Nashville in the Gulch. You're going to love the community. You're going to love the atmosphere. The coaching staff is top-notch, and they're just there to help you throughout the course of your fitness journey. TrueMathFitness.com. I'm incredibly grateful to them for helping me. I know they can do the same for you. Your path will be different than mine and different from the person next to you, but they will help you accomplish your fitness goals at TrueMathFitness.com. All right. So, Major Key says, my Houston Rockets got KD. That's probably, there's an interesting weekend on the internet, beyond the fact that the United States is getting involved in Middle East affairs yet again, but that's a different version of the internet than we're talking about. We're sticking to the sports internet around here, and the most interesting thing on the sports internet this week was Fanatics Fest. The most interesting thing happening at Fanatics Fest was Kevin Durant on stage finding out, as the crowd found out, that he was being traded from the Phoenix Suns to the Houston Rockets.
Seems like there is a news report that has just taken place about KD's destination. I believe that KD has been traded to the Houston
So that is Kevin Durant at Fanatics Fest. Fanatics Fest is a huge undertaking in New York City. I think this is their second annual event. And, it's got everybody from Tom Brady to Kevin Durant to LeBron James to, so many sports superstars. I know Stephen A. Smith was doing impressions or having impressions done for him for fake Stephen A. Smiths. I know that there are all kinds of different events, all kinds of different athletes. It's a huge undertaking, and every professional athlete, at least in North American sports, appeared to be there this weekend. So that's Taylor Rooks on the stage doing a Q&A with Kevin Durant, and the news breaks. And Kevin Durant would have an idea, right? Kevin Durant is not finding out cold or blind there that he's going to Houston on the stage. He will have been made aware of different landing spots. He will have been made aware of a percentage chance of him landing at every landing spot. He probably had a pretty good idea that he was going to Houston before he was sent up on that stage. His representation is not going to let him fly blind that way. And I'm assuming that, but, if Kevin Durant ends up firing his representation for whatever reason, maybe he didn't. No, but the percentage chance that Kevin Durant was completely blindsided by this is slim to none. I saw some stupid people on the internet saying Kevin Durant found out in real time that he was going to be traded to the Houston Rockets while on stage. No, you idiot. You have no idea how these conversations work. I'm not talking about you guys. It's okay if you guys think that way, but like people who are pretending to be sports media professionals that are acting like there's not an entire economy built around where these guys go and that this shit just happens like when a tweet is sent is nonsense. So I saw plenty of people who should not be credentialed members of the media, not to be an asshole about it, but if you have that little knowledge of the business of sports, then I don't think you should be trusted to disseminate information to other people. But it's still crazy. It's still crazy to see in real time. Crazy for that many fans to be out there. And Kevin Durant's line at the time was just, well, we're gonna see. We're gonna see what happens here. Even though he understands what everything that is going on. Now we've got Game 7 of the NBA. Speaking of, my Pacers are currently trailing. SGA just who was that? Alex Caruso that hit a three to give them the lead early on in the first quarter, which makes me very sad. They're in OKC. I want to see the Pacers win. I'm rooting for the Pacers. You guys may be rooting against them. You may be rooting against me, but it's going to be a lot more fun if the Pacers win more on the radio show for those of you guys who hang out with us. We will do some AFC South defensive position group rankings tomorrow. We will do primetime, a normal primetime schedule this week. As far as I know, I don't think that there's anything that would interrupt us as far as the last couple of weeks. I know we've had some holidays. I know we've had some vacation time. Everything this week should be as usual. So we will continue to keep you updated with the latest on the Titans and everything else happening in the NFL. So have a great start to your week. Have a great viewing experience in these NBA finals. And hopefully, for my sake, the Indiana Pacers are able to pull it off tonight. If not, you can deal with me tomorrow from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. I'll see you guys.
There's a very low percentage of this